hello. So we all take language tests and we give language tests, but we need to be aware that there are some serious limitations to language tests that we need to be aware of. The first thing we need to know is that test scores are only an indirect indicator of language ability. This is because the things that we do in tests do not resemble real life. Now, the more test tasks are going to be similar to the things that we do in real life with the language, the more direct they will be. For example, an interview is more direct than a multiple choice test. The second limitation of tests is incompleteness. And the truth is that we will never be able to observe an individual's total performance in a given language. What we do with a test is just take one tiny little sample. And we can illustrate incompleteness by the typical iceberg picture. This is like a sample that we elicit with a test. That means the questions, the answers that the test taker gives. And then of course there is an underlying communicative competence that we cannot see because we cannot have a test that is long enough to test all of a person's linguistic and communicative competence. Now, tests are also imprecise because of the representativeness and the number of tasks or units in which we define our skills. This means that, as in the previous example, if we use multiple choice, the person can get correct answers just by guessing, and so our measure is imprecise. As I already told you, it is impossible to get a 0 score on the TOEFL test. Even if you don't know anything and just guess the answers just by choosing randomly A, B, C, D, E, you're going to get a score. So that's what we call impreciseness. And also, because of the scales that we're going to use are normally going to be rating, and in this involves a subjective estimation of performance, so it is imprecise, and also the nominal or dichotomous scale. Another disadvantage and a result of imprecision is the fact that we need to make sure that the level of the items matches the ability levels of the test takers, which may be difficult sometimes. Now, there's also subjectivity, and in this case we can say that language tests are subjective in nearly all aspects. That means the people who develop the test, the people who write the test, the people who take the test. Why? Because all of these people are humans, and all of the decisions that they make are based on their own perception. That means they are subjective. And we can say, in that sense, that we can make a test very, very difficult on purpose. We can make it easy. We can make it, with a relatively medium level of difficulty, depending on the tasks and on the content that we select. Now, the last thing is relativeness, and relativeness refers to the fact that the presence or absence of language abilities is impossible to define in absolute sense. So in this regard, what we can say is that sometimes there is no zero ability. If you remember, I gave you a test in Romanian, and you know Romanian even though you had never studied before. And also, nobody has complete or absolute language ability. That means there is not a single person, no matter how smart the person is, or how much the person has studied, or if the person is a Nobel Prize. The thing is that nobody knows his or her own language completely. There are too many words, too many grammatical structures, too many varieties of the language and dialects and registers, so nobody knows 100% or 0% of the language. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have to say about the limitations of language tests. So now, next time you take a test, next time you design a test, try to be careful, because we know that the results that we get from tests are some measurements of competence, but they may not be as accurate as we usually believe. Thanks a lot for your attention, and see you next time.